So, is the likelihood of a peace conference in Geneva fast disappearing? Earlier, we spoke to Arash Aramesh, the National Security and Middle East Analyst at Stanford Law School in California.
Whether it does take place or not, the big problem is this major gap, this divide between the opposition outside Syria and those who are actually fighting inside Syria. There are many groups of different factions, of different sects and different color sorts fighting in Syria against the government of Bashar al-Assad. You got radical Islamists all the way to what we call here as moderates. The 22 organizations today that boycotted these talks happen to be mostly from the Islamist side of the fighters against Bashar al-Assad. Here's the problem. The problem is that the West does not know whom to support, to whom to give weapons to whom to give weapons. And a lot of the guys who are now fighting and have the upper hand inside Syria fighting against Assad happen to be radical Islamists. The problem in Syria, the problem with peace talks, again, is this big divide between the guys on the outside and the guys inside the country. Iran has already committed some troops to Syria. There have been reports of fighters, special forces coming from the Revolutionary Guards who have been fighting in Syria. Iran has organized Shiite militias going from Iraq and Lebanon and some from Afghanistan to fight in Syria. This is no longer, this has become a proxy war between Iran and Qatar and Saudi Arabia. This has now become much more than a fight for democracy in Syria as it was 3 years ago. It's now evolved, or I should say, devolved into an all-out sectarian war. When you see the videos and the footage coming out of Syria, you see guys, Salafi fighters versus Shiite fighters, Salafis going there to kill Shiites and Shiites going there to support their Shiite brethren. This has now become transitioned very sadly into a sectarian conflict. Are the Russians and the Iranians going to commit boots, formally and officially, boots to the ground? I doubt not. Serbia was a much bigger ally and ethnically very similar to the Russians, but the Russians did not commit boots to the ground in the late 90s to defend the Serbs against NATO bombings, and later against them losing the war in Bosnia and then Kosovo. This time is different, though. You have a different leadership in the Kremlin. You have different facts on the ground in Syria, and the Iranians have put a lot of their eggs in the same basket in Syria, and they really do not want to see the government of Bashar al-Assad to fall. But again, committing boots to the ground, that's elevating this elevated war to yet another degree of elevation, very dangerous for stability in the region.